Hey, I need to get something off my chest. This isn't an easy story to tell, but I've been sitting on it for a while now, and I think writing it out will help me process everything. So, here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old guy, married to my wife, Lisa, who's 26. We've been together for about 5 years and married for almost 2. To outsiders, we're that couple who seem to have it all figured out. I guess we were, or at least I thought we were. Lately, though, things had been a little off. It wasn't anything huge at first. Just small things, like we weren't laughing as much together, conversations felt more like exchanges of basic info instead of deep talks, and we just weren't spending as much time together. At the time, I told myself it was the usual stress of work and life. Lisa had been busy with her new job, and I was dealing with some things at work too. Life gets in the way, right? It happens. But then, last Thursday, I found out the truth. And I don't even know where to start with that. I guess you could say that was the moment everything changed. So, last Thursday, I was at home, working from my desk in the living room. Lisa had just gotten back from a late meeting, and I'd been waiting for her to settle in so we could have dinner together. Normally, I'd make some small talk while she unwinds, but that night I noticed something different. She was acting off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but she was distracted. She didn't seem interested in talking about her day, and I couldn't help but feel like she was keeping something from me. Anyway, after dinner, I went to grab a drink, and that's when I noticed her phone on the kitchen counter. Now, I'm not the type to snoop, but for some reason, something told me I needed to look at it. I picked it up, yes, I know, I should have just walked away, but I didn't. I unlocked the screen, and there it was. A message. From a guy named Matt. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The messages were personal. Too personal. They were talking about meeting up, how they missed each other, and how excited they were to see each other soon. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My hands started shaking as I read through the conversation, and every message made me feel more and more like I was sinking. I had no idea what was going on, but I had this sinking feeling in my chest. I don't know if it was jealousy or fear, but I had to know more. So, I did the dumbest thing I could have done, I read through her whole message history. There were flirtatious texts, pictures that shouldn't have been sent, and yeah, I'll say it, what looked like an emotional affair. I don't know what was worse, the shock or the realization that she was hiding this from me for weeks, maybe months. I was frozen for a second, trying to process what I'd just seen. It felt like time stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. My hands were still holding the phone, and I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, about to fall into some kind of abyss. The worst part was that I didn't know what to do next. I walked into the living room, and Lisa was sitting there, scrolling through her own phone, completely unaware that I knew. My heart was pounding in my chest. I didn't know if I should confront her right then and there, or if I should wait and process everything first. But how could I sit there pretending everything was fine when my whole world felt like it was crashing down? Without even thinking, I blurted it out. "Who is Matt?" I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. Her face instantly turned pale, and she dropped her phone on the couch like she'd been caught with her hand in the cookie jar. The silence between us felt suffocating. She stood up, her eyes wide, and immediately started apologizing, but it didn't sound sincere at first. It felt rehearsed, like she had prepared for this moment in her head. I couldn't believe how calm she was. Was she really that unaffected by what was happening? I pushed her on it. "How long, Lisa? How long has this been going on?" The words felt like they were cutting through the air, and with every second of silence from her, the anger inside me grew. Her face turned red as she sat back down, visibly trying to gather her thoughts. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, okay? I didn't want to hurt you. It's just, Matt and we've been talking for a while, and things just sort of happened. That's when I snapped. Happened? You've been sending intimate messages, talking about meeting up, how is that just happening? The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Her face twisted, and I saw the guilt in her eyes. She didn't deny it. Instead, she just sat there, biting her lip, unable to say much more. It was at that moment that I realized something. She wasn't just caught in the act, she was emotionally invested in this person. And that hurt more than anything. I don't even know how the conversation went after that. My mind was spinning, and I could barely focus on what Lisa was saying. All I could feel was this cold, empty space between us that hadn't been there before. I tried to listen, but every word she said just felt like more of an excuse. She explained that Matt was a coworker she'd grown close to over the past few months. She said they'd started talking more when she'd been feeling lonely and stressed at work. Apparently, he'd been a good listener, and that's how it all started. She told me over and over that nothing physical had happened, but that didn't matter to me. I wasn't mad just because of some flirtation, it was the emotional connection that cut the deepest. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking with frustration. "You were hiding this from me, Lisa. Hiding us." She broke down, crying. I could barely look at her. I didn't want to comfort her, not after what she'd done. It felt like any empathy I had for her was evaporating by the second. But I stayed. I stayed because I needed answers, not because I wanted to fix things. At that moment, fixing things didn't seem possible. After a while, she calmed down enough to explain that she never meant to fall for Matt. She said it was just a stupid mistake that she regretted and that she was going to end things with him immediately. She swore that she loved me and only wanted to be with me. But I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. The trust was shattered, and I felt it in every fiber of my being. How could I move forward knowing she had been hiding something so significant? I told her I needed time to think. I didn't want to make any hasty decisions. But deep down, I knew I was already questioning everything. The rest of that night was a blur. We went to bed in silence, and I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see were those messages, her words to him, his words to her, and the idea of her smiling at her phone while texting him. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I didn't know how to get past it. But I had to make a decision. I couldn't just let this eat me alive. The next few days were a blur of emotions: anger, confusion, sadness, even numbness. I couldn't escape the thoughts of what Lisa had done. We still lived together, but it felt like we were in two completely different worlds. Every time she tried to talk to me, I just froze. I didn't know how to respond. What was I supposed to say? "Oh, it's fine, I forgive you," like it was nothing? The pain was still too raw. I threw myself into work, mostly to distract myself, but that didn't work either. At night, when I lay in bed, I would replay everything over and over again. The way she looked when I confronted her, her apology, the way she said it would never happen again. But none of that erased the fact that something had changed between us. The foundation we'd built our relationship on felt cracked, and I had no idea if it could be repaired. Lisa tried to be understanding, giving me space and checking in with me every now and then. She even suggested we go to couples therapy, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. I couldn't get over the feeling that I didn't know who she was anymore. If she could hide this from me, what else had she been hiding? What if I wasn't enough for her, or worse, what if I never had been? One evening, about a week after everything came to light, I sat down with her. I needed clarity. "Do you still want this relationship?" I asked her. "Because I don't know if I can keep going if I'm always wondering if you're emotionally invested in someone else." Her eyes welled up with tears again. "Yes, I want this," she said, her voice cracking. I messed up. I don't know why I let it get that far. It wasn't about you, it was about me, about feeling like I was missing something. But that's not an excuse. I'm so sorry, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust, if you'll let me. I didn't know if I could let her. But I could see she was hurting too. I didn't want to be the bad guy in this, but at the same time, I couldn't just pretend everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. We decided to take a step back and re-evaluate everything. We agreed to give each other space, really space, not just physical distance, but emotional space to think. It was painful, but I realized that maybe this was the only way to figure out what I truly wanted, time to reflect, time to understand if I could ever trust her again. During the next few days, I tried to take a step back and really look at everything, not just the affair, but our relationship as a whole. I wanted to understand what led us here. It wasn't easy. I spent hours thinking, talking to close friends, even journaling, trying to figure out what was going through my head. The thing is, I could see where Lisa had been coming from. It wasn't just that she'd been feeling lonely at work, it was that something inside her had been missing for a long time. She'd talked about how our communication had slowly broken down over the months, how we'd stopped making time for each other, how she felt emotionally disconnected. I couldn't ignore that. As much as I hated to admit it, there had been a shift in our relationship long before Matt entered the picture. We had gotten comfortable, too comfortable. Our routines, our work stress, our daily responsibilities, it had all overshadowed the love we'd once shared. But that didn't mean what she did was okay. No, it was far from okay. And that's where my mind kept circling back. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that she'd let it go on for so long without telling me. She'd let the gap between us grow wider, rather than reaching out to fix things. It hurt to think that she had turned to someone else, even emotionally, instead of coming to me for help. I talked to a couple of friends about it. One told me that it wasn't uncommon for people to make mistakes, especially when they felt isolated. Another friend told me that if I loved her, I should be able to forgive her over time, of course. But the question was, could I? I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster. One minute I was angry, the next I was heartbroken. I couldn't stop thinking about the good times we'd had, the memories we'd built, and whether it was worth salvaging. But then there was this voice in my head reminding me of the hurt she'd caused, and I kept wondering if I'd ever be able to trust her the same way again. To be honest, part of me was also afraid to be alone. I didn't want to face the possibility that our marriage might be over. What would that mean for me? For her? Could we ever go back to the way things were? I didn't have answers, and that scared me more than anything. The uncertainty was overwhelming, and I had to admit that I wasn't ready to make any decisions just yet. What I did know was that I needed time. Time to figure out if this relationship was worth saving or if it had already run its course. A week passed, and things felt like they were in limbo. Lisa and I barely spoke except for the occasional "how are you?" or "are you okay?" The space we had agreed on was supposed to help us both reflect, but all it did was make everything feel colder. There were moments when I found myself missing the closeness we had, but then I'd remember what she'd done, and that coldness would come rushing back. One night, after a particularly rough day at work, I found myself sitting alone on the couch, scrolling through old photos of Lisa and me, vacations, family events, those moments when we were laughing so hard we couldn't breathe. I remembered how much I loved her, how much I thought I knew her, and how easy it was to take all of that for granted. But those memories, while comforting, also made the betrayal hurt even more. The woman I thought I knew wasn't the woman I had to confront now. I'd been avoiding it, but I knew I couldn't hide forever. The next day, I sat down with Lisa again, this time more calm, but with a heavy heart. We needed to talk, really talk, without the distractions of anger or guilt. I've been thinking, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. And I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now. But I do know that I can't keep going on like this. I don't want us to just exist in the same house and pretend everything's fine. I need to understand, we need to understand, what happened. And I need you to be honest with me. Lisa looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and regret. She nodded slowly. I know I've messed up. But I love you, and I want to fix this. I need to hear more than just "I'm sorry," I said. I need to understand why you didn't come to me when you were feeling disconnected. Why did you turn to someone else? She took a deep breath, her voice shaky as she spoke. I was scared. I felt like I was losing you, and I didn't know how to fix it. You were so busy with work, and we didn't talk the way we used to. I thought maybe it was just me, that maybe I wasn't enough, and I didn't want to burden you with that. My heart sank as I listened. I had been so caught up in my own work and stress that I hadn't noticed how much she was struggling. I hadn't even realized that she felt that lonely, that emotionally neglected. But Matt? I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. Why him? Why not talk to me about how you were feeling before it got to that point? She looked down, almost ashamed. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. I didn't want to make things worse, and I didn't know if you'd even understand. I was just looking for someone who would listen. It was painful to hear, but it also made me realize something. Lisa hadn't sought out Matt because she wanted to hurt me. She had been desperate for connection, and in her desperation, she made a huge mistake. It wasn't an excuse, but it was part of the picture. I sat there in silence for a while, processing everything. In some ways, I still felt betrayed, but there was a part of me that understood where she was coming from, even if it didn't justify what she did. I don't know if we can fix this, I said finally, my voice quieter now. But I think we have to try. At least I need to try. But I'm not going to lie, this is going to take a lot of time. And I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. But I want to see if we can rebuild. Lisa nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I'll do whatever it takes, she said, her voice breaking. I'll prove to you that I want us to work. I'm so sorry for everything I've done to hurt you. We didn't have all the answers yet, but at least we were talking again. And that, for me, was the first step toward figuring out if we could move forward or if it was time to let go. The days that followed were both a relief and a challenge. We were finally communicating again, and that was something I hadn't realized I'd missed until it started happening. Lisa was doing her part, trying to be more present, more open. She was asking questions, actively listening, and making an effort to understand my side of things. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. But the hardest part was rebuilding trust. I couldn't ignore the nagging voice in my head that wondered if she'd slip again, if her feelings for Matt were still lingering. That voice wouldn't shut up. I'd catch myself looking at her phone, checking if she was texting someone else, or getting nervous when she was late from work. I hated it. I hated that I had to feel this way. But the truth was, the damage had been done, and trust wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. We made an agreement, transparency. No more secrets. She gave me access to her phone whenever I needed it, and she stopped hiding her conversations. At first, it felt like a small form of control on my part, but it wasn't about controlling her, it was about giving myself the space to feel secure again. I needed to see that she was committed to making things right. Lisa did her best to reassure me, constantly reminding me that she was working on herself, going to therapy on her own, and trying to understand why she had gotten to the point of emotional disconnection in the first place. It helped to know that she wasn't just sitting around waiting for things to magically get better, but even then, a part of me wondered if I was just fooling myself. Could things really go back to the way they were? Could I ever look at her without the shadow of doubt lingering over us? One night, after a long, quiet dinner, I asked her if she still thought about Matt. She hesitated before answering, and that split second of hesitation told me more than I needed to know. I don't want to think about him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to focus on us. I know I made a mistake, and I'm trying to move on from it. But it's hard. I won't lie. I could see the guilt still eating at her, and part of me resented it, but another part of me appreciated her honesty. I didn't expect her to forget about it overnight, but I needed to know she was committed to doing the work to move forward. I realized something then. This wasn't just about Lisa's mistake, it was about both of us. We had both failed each other in different ways. I had gotten complacent. I had stopped putting in the effort, stopped being emotionally available the way I used to be. She had found solace in someone else because I hadn't been there when she needed me. And now, it was going to take both of us working together to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't easy. There were days when I'd find myself stuck in my own head, doubting everything. There were times when Lisa would do something small, like answer a text too quickly or step away for a moment, and my mind would race. But I kept reminding myself that this wasn't going to be an overnight fix. Trust takes time to rebuild, and we had a long road ahead of us. But for the first time since that night I found the messages, I could see a faint glimmer of hope. We were talking. We were trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. As the weeks went on, Lisa and I started to make some progress. There were still some bumps in the road, and not every day was easy. But we were getting better at communicating, at least. And I started to feel like we could have real conversations again, not just surface-level exchanges, but deeper ones about the past, the present, and the future. One evening, I sat down with Lisa after work, both of us exhausted but determined to have a meaningful conversation. I knew we couldn't keep avoiding the hard stuff. "I think we need to talk about what happened," I said, my voice quieter than usual. "I know we've been trying to move forward, but I need to understand everything. I need to hear it from you, without any more hiding or glossing over things." Lisa nodded. She had been expecting this. "I know. I've been waiting for you to ask. I didn't know if I could say it all out loud without making things worse." "It won't make it worse, Lisa." "I need to hear it," I said. "I need to know how deep this went. I need to know if I'm still the guy you want to be with." She looked down at her hands, almost like she was bracing herself. "I don't want to hurt you more than I already have," she said, her voice tight. "But I need you to understand that it wasn't just physical attraction with Matt. It was emotional. I felt seen. I felt like he understood me in ways I thought you didn't anymore. We got close. I got attached. But it was never supposed to go that far. I never meant to fall for him." I sat back, trying to absorb her words. There was a part of me that wanted to lash out, to demand why she didn't come to me sooner. But I knew this wasn't about pointing fingers anymore, it was about understanding what had broken inside of us and whether we could fix it. "You said you felt like I wasn't there for you," I said. "That I was too focused on work. But what about me, Lisa? I was there for you. I always was. I didn't know you felt that way. I never saw it." She sighed, tears welling in her eyes. "I know. I didn't tell you. I didn't know how to. And by the time I realized how much I was slipping away, it felt like it was too late. I didn't know how to ask for help, so I shut down. And then, I turned to someone else who made me feel better, even though I knew it was wrong. I couldn't hold back the frustration anymore. Why didn't you come to me? I would have done anything to help you, Lisa. You didn't have to carry this alone." "I thought you wouldn't understand," she whispered. "I thought if I told you how I was feeling, you'd think I was just being needy, or that I was being unreasonable. I didn't want to burden you. I didn't want to make things worse." The silence hung in the air for a moment. I felt a mix of frustration and sadness. I understood her fear, but I couldn't ignore how badly I had been hurt by it. "I want to believe you, Lisa. I want to move forward. But it's going to take time. I can't just flip a switch and pretend like everything's fine." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't expect that. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. That I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I want to be with you. You're the one I want." I didn't know what the future held for us, but I knew that these tough conversations were the only way forward. It wasn't going to be easy, and there were no guarantees. But at least now, we were talking honestly, and that was a step in the right direction. Months have passed since that night, and we've been working on rebuilding our relationship, piece by piece. It's been difficult, some days feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but other days, I feel like we've made real progress. Lisa and I have had many more conversations, some tearful, some awkward, but all of them necessary. We've learned more about each other than I thought possible. She's been more open about her feelings, and I've made a conscious effort to be present, to really listen, and to put in the work that I neglected before. It hasn't been perfect. I still have moments where doubt creeps in, and I catch myself wondering if I can ever fully trust her again. But what I've realized is that trust isn't just about not making mistakes, it's about how you move forward after them, and whether you're both committed to doing the work. We started couples therapy, which I didn't think I'd be into at first, but it's helped a lot. Talking to a professional has given us a neutral space to address things that were too painful or difficult to say on our own. It's helped us understand each other's needs and the reasons why we ended up in this mess. Lisa is still working through her own personal issues, and I'm working on not letting resentment build up. It's a delicate balance. I've come to understand that relationships take effort, and sometimes, those efforts need to be renewed, especially when things start to feel stale or disconnected. I know now that I can't just take Lisa's presence for granted. I can't get so caught up in my own world that I forget about hers. That's something we both need to work on. For the first time in a while, I feel hopeful. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm seeing changes in both of us. We're learning to communicate better, to appreciate the small things, and to never assume that things are fine just because we've stopped talking about the problems. The key is in the little things, the thoughtful gestures, the checking in with each other, the moments of vulnerability. We're not where we used to be. In some ways, we're in a completely different place. But that doesn't mean it's the end. In fact, it feels like a new beginning. As for advice to anyone reading this, if you're going through something similar, I don't have a perfect solution. But I will say this: don't let your pain build up. Don't ignore the signs that something's wrong. Talk to your partner, even when it's uncomfortable. It's hard, but sometimes those difficult conversations are the ones that save you. And remember, healing takes time. It's okay to not have all the answers right away. What matters is that you're willing to keep trying, even when it feels like everything's falling apart. Because sometimes, things fall apart so that they can be rebuilt stronger than before. So, that's where I am now. Not sure what the future holds, but hopeful that, together, we can keep working toward it. One day at a time.